Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Ever Living Podcast. I'm one of your life loving hosts, Jessica.
And I'm Cindy.
And today we have an awesome guest. We have Bill O'Brien. Bill is the chairman of Connecticut Right to Life, and he also serves as the chairman and president of Unborn Babies Count. Welcome, Bill. We're so glad to have you here.
No, thanks for inviting me. Glad to be here.
So, how are you doing? How's your summer going?
It's been pretty busy, but productive, I guess.
Yeah, I know you were just telling me that you redid you remodeled your basement and you have a new office and everything. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. Bought a new canoe, but haven't used it yet.
Well, I
so,
guess the last couple days in Connecticut haven't been the best weather to use a
right.
canoe,
Yeah.
so it's been rainy. So, well, great. Well, yeah. Well, we're so excited to have you here. Yeah. So, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your background, and yeah, just a little bit more about the different positions that you hold?
Sure. I guess I go back quite a ways, I guess. I remember walking on college campus. I went to Catholic U in Washington. And before Roe v. Wade, the issue was coming up, and I remember just walking behind one of the dorms one night and thinking about the issue, and thinking that if the unborn child is a person, then abortion's wrong, and because we're being debated on campus, even a Catholic campus, and so I made that decision that the unborn child must be a person, and ever since that, I've been pro-life. About a year and a half later. That was in 71 or 72, whatever. Then, of course, in 73, Roe v. Wade came down. And in 74, late 74, I joined Connecticut Right to Life. The president of Connecticut Right to Life happened to live right in my town. And I read about a demonstration at Bridgeport Hospital against abortion, and read that in the paper and saw her name and called her, and been involved ever since. And so Connecticut Right to Life, it actually started earlier that year. This is Connecticut Right to Life Corporation, and went on through up until about the pandemic time, and then we had to lay low like everybody else did. And since then, we've formed actually a new group, Connecticut Right to Life Education Alliance, which is more of an educational 501c3 instead of the previous group, which was a 501c4 lobbying group. So, so we can still do some lobbying, but we're, going to be getting more into education now than we did before.
So, great. So you said that Connecticut Right to Life is now doing more educational things, and then you're also working with Unborn Babies Count. So can you tell us a little bit more about Unborn Babies Count and what exactly you do there?
Right. Actually, back in 1990, going way back again, I was helped organize a lawsuit against the U.S. Census Bureau. I don't know if anyone of your viewers know Chris Slattery, but he was from New York. He was head of the biggest chain of pregnancy centers in New York City. And I worked with him. His wife was pregnant on Census Day in 1990, and he actually listed his unborn child on the census form. But we never knew if they counted the unborn child, but assumed they didn't. So anyway, that couple, on behalf of their unborn child, myself and about 4 other families from different states, we sued the Census Bureau, and saying that the Census 14th Amendment says every person gets counted, and the unborn children are persons, so they should have been counted in 1990. Of course, the court ruled several years later that because the word person in Roe v. Wade does not include the unborn, then they don't get counted. So, we did appeal, but didn't get any further with that. But so then we sort of laid low on that issue for a long time. But with the 1990 or the 2020 census, we started again to get together some possible plaintiffs, again, families with children born in 2020. And we've been working ever since to get a lawsuit against the Census Bureau again. And we have a lawyer that's working on that right now to prepare a case. So
Oh,
we're,
wow.
and of course, since 2020, of course, we've gotten the Dobbs decision, which supposedly has overturned Roe v. Wade,
Mhm.
which was the whole crux of the decision against us back in the 1990s. But of course, in Dobbs, they didn't address the personhood issue. They simply sent it back to the states. So Roe v. Wade has partially been overturned, but not all. And we're hoping that this new case will finish Roe v. Wade off for good.
Mhm. So, Bill, why is it important to count unborn children?
Well, again, the 14th Amendment says that every person, and they use the word person, the first section of the 14th Amendment, they define, a citizen having been born. But that means a person who's been born or a person who has been naturalized. But it doesn't define what a person is, just citizen. So in the second clause of the 14th Amendment, it refers to the census and says every person must be counted, not every citizen, every person. And the Census Bureau has always interpreted that to mean any person who is an inhabitant of the United States. And that includes, they've always counted aliens, whether they're legal or illegal, if they're living here. Now, they don't count business people or vacationers traveling through. They're not inhabitants. They don't count diplomats. But, they do count, or are supposed to count everybody else. And they can no more say, well, we're not going to count Catholics or Irish like me, or or women or anything else. They can't eliminate any group. It says every person gets counted, and of course, with up until the 13th Amendment or the 14th Amendment, really, they didn't count black slaves or blacks at all, probably, as a person. They only counted them as 3/5 of a person, and that changed with the 14th Amendment. And we want them to do the same thing now with the unborn, to recognize them as a full person.
Very cool. So I'm curious, how do you how are you hoping that the Dobbs decision will help change the result of this lawsuit? Do you what are you hoping that the Dobbs decision will add to your case to have unborn babies be counted as
Mhm.
persons?
In the Dobbs decision, again, they simply said that the nothing in the Constitution allows or prohibits abortion, and that it's simply up to the states to do it. The Congress could do something about it too, but mainly the states, which is where the issue was before Roe v. Wade. It was up to the states. Connecticut, my home state here, they passed a law in 1860 that updated the previous law. The previous law said that no abortions in Connecticut after quickening, when the mother could feel the baby. In 1860, following a study by the AMA, American Medical Association, in 1858, which said that the unborn child is a human being. 2 years later, Connecticut updated its law and went from quickening all the way back to conception, to ban abortion. So it goes way back where the states were the regulators of abortion. And, Roe v. Wade took that away from the states, basically, and said they can't ban it at all. And so, the Dobbs decision simply sent it back to pre-Roe status. But we want to go back to, to the Constitution, and just the same as where they determined that black slaves are full persons, a full human being, that the unborn children are full human beings too, which is what Connecticut said in 1860. By recognizing that no abortions after conception. So that's what people thought back then when they wrote that amendment, that the unborn child was a person and a human being. So it's those Supreme Court justices that go by originalism, saying that they look for what the meaning was of the changes in the Constitution at the time that it was written. Well, at the time it was written, Connecticut and other states thought that it was a full human being. So that's what we want to go back to.
So your hope is that basically your lawsuit will bring up the discussion again about what what is a person, right? What is defined as a person,
Right.
under the federal government. Very
Exactly.
cool. Very interesting. So when do you see, when can our listeners expect, like, when will this lawsuit be filed, do you think? Do you have any timeline on when you're planning on doing that?
Yeah, I just spoke with my attorney just earlier this week, or last week, I guess. So he's just getting started on looking at it, and having to develop the the issues that he's going to be going on. I think it definitely will have to take in the 14th Amendment, but it could also, as I just mentioned, the 13th Amendment, which bans slavery. And there was an interesting thing. Forget where I read it, but they some writing that I read mentioned in Missouri, when they were pre-Civil War, the legislature in Missouri was considering freeing the slaves in that state. And in the legislature, one house said, well, under the Constitution, if we take away private property, we have to compensate the owner of that property. And of course, slaves are considered property. So they said, well, then we'll pay $500 for each slave that's freed in Missouri to each slave owner. And then all those slaves will be free. And then somebody said, well, what about the unborn slaves, because they could buy and sell unborn children as well. And they said, well, maybe $200. One house said, I think the other house said $300. So they put a price on the head of every unborn child slave back in before the Civil War. And now that old law did not pass, but you could tell where they were coming from by the debate that came up and the amendments that they had. So so again, for the originalists on the court, which there are several, we hope that they look at that kind of thing and determine that for over 150 years or so, 100 whatever number, the laws in the country have considered the unborn child to be a person. And even right now, it's about 38 states that have homicide laws that include the unborn. Fetal homicide laws, and the federal government as well has the unborn babies or victims of homicide act. So it's pretty widespread in this country right now. But it's you got two things. You got, if you believe the unborn child is not a baby, then you can kill it by abortion. But if you believe it is a baby, then if someone kills your unborn baby other than yourself or the abortionist, then it's a homicide. So we've got a split decision, and then as
Quite
Lincoln said, a house divided cannot stand.
Yeah. Do you think a pregnant mom can drive in the carpool lane? This two persons.
Exactly. I would support that. I would argue that should be the case.
Yeah, I mean, from that perspective, definitely she should be able to. Maybe they should change the law to write it a little bit better.
That could be another project. Once you figure out the census thing, that could be your next project.
Right.
How many how many more people would be added to the census, do you think, if children in the womb were counted?
I believe it's around 3.5 million babies born in the country each year. So we'd have to knock it down from 12 months of births down to about 9 months, because only 9 months were in the womb on that census date, which is usually April 1st of the census year. So whatever 3/4 of that 3.5 million, or say round it up to 4 million, so you count maybe 3 million more. But that's just the babies that are born that were in the womb. Then we'd have to find out what about the ones that were not born later because they were aborted. And there's about a million abortions a year, again, and they weren't in the womb for 9 months. They were only in the womb for 2 or 3 months, perhaps. So we'd have to figure out that percentage. And then you've got stillborn babies, and then you've got in vitro babies, which aren't in the womb at all. They're in some frozen or cryopreserved tank we don't know how many of those there are. The estimates go anywhere from 500,000 up to 7 million of those. We don't know, but that's one way to find out. The fertility clinics that freeze frozen embryos, they know because they get a rental fee for every single one of those every month, and so they know exactly. So that should be the easiest people to count in the entire census. Just tell us how many rents you're getting every month for your frozen embryos and put them in the census count.
I think it's crazy to me that these fertility facilities are literally getting paid to like preserve the lives of these embryos, yet we're not counting them as persons in the census. Like that's, I don't know. There seems like there's some cognitive dissonance there, you know. Yeah, that's odd.
They're still using from 50 years ago. They're still using the same thing. My body, my choice. And how is it your body? If we had one possible plaintiff a couple of years ago, she had to drop out, but she had frozen embryos she lived in Missouri, but she had frozen embryos in Pennsylvania. So so how are they part of her body? A couple hundred miles away, and so it raised a lot of questions like that.
Mm-hmm. Does the census affect like voting or other?
Yeah, well, of course, the census is done for the purpose of reapportionment of Congress. Depending on the number of people in your state that are counted, that determines how many representatives you get in the U.S. House of Representatives. For example, Connecticut used to have 6 representatives, and about 20 years ago or so, we lost one, so we only have 5 now. And if you count up how many abortions there have been in Connecticut, at least years ago, it used to be over 20,000 a year. Figure that one on for 10 years, that's 200,000. And then for the last 30 or 40 years, it's been about 10,000. So you're talking another 400,000, 600,000 maybe total. That's the whole congressional district that we have aborted in Connecticut. And, and then beyond representation in Congress, to figure out how many people are going to vote in the electoral college for president, you take the 2 senators plus in Connecticut the 5 representatives, and you add that together, you got 7 people are going to vote from Connecticut for president in the electoral college. California, of course, I'm not sure how many representatives they have, but they count the 2 senators plus whatever it is, 40 or 50 congressmen, so they get 42 or 52 votes in the electoral college. So it's representation in Congress and in the vote for president, and of course in the state legislature, all the state representatives, state senators, state representatives, their districts are determined by the census as well, and billions and billions and billions of dollars, federal dollars, that are given out on a per capita basis, are given out to the states, and they're all based on the census count. So there's a lot of things that are based on this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know any?
Oh, go ahead, Cindy.
Do you know any countries in the world that do count unborn children in their census?
I believe there is one that announced in the past year, but I can't think of which one it might have been. The state of Georgia did pass a law several years ago. It was challenged for several years, but it's now in effect. And their state law says that they should count unborn children in the census. Now, it doesn't really say what census, because their state and the federal census is different. They don't control that. So, but in whatever census they have, they're mandated to include the unborn.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, you'd think that if one, I guess you're saying in the state census, but still, it's interesting that one state out of 50 would be doing that.
Right.
Just for consistency purposes, it'd be great if every state was doing it too. I think just what you said about if you count up the amount of babies that are aborted every year in Connecticut, that it would literally like over the years, right, would be an entire congressional district. That's just like that hit me. I was just like, wow, like exactly. That's drastic, you know. That's really drastic, and
Right.
when you look at the numbers that way, I think it even shows how much, like, it puts more emphasis on how much of an issue abortion truly is.
Right. Hmm. You know,
Yeah.
and there's been what, close to 65 million abortions in the last 50 years or so. That's a lot of congressional districts that are affected, and it's the liberal states. I mean, New England and New York, they've been losing congressional seats, you know, hand over fist for the last several decades, you know,
Yeah.
to the southern states, and part of it's because of they keep aborting their the babies there. Uh,
True.
California is starting to lose. They always kept gaining for decades, but they're starting to lose them too. And of course, they're aborting out there too.
Yeah.
It it would be useful to have these statistics too, right? To know how many like how many children uh, are conceived and then how many are born, right? We don't have data like that.
Um, you know, the more the more statistics, the better. I know one statistic I always remember is in Ireland. Of course, you know they didn't have abortion, and you know when it comes up as far as you know, I mean, some people say, "Oh, we need abortion to protect mother's health." Well, Ireland is always one of the top 3 or 5 countries in the world that, number one, did not have abortion, but had the highest maternal not mortality rate, but the best more maternal mortality rate of any of the countries. It was up there. Sweden has abortions and they have a very low maternal mortality rate, but so but Ireland had just the opposite. Very low maternal mortality rate, but no abortions. So you know there didn't seem to be a difference one way or the other, really. As far as you know the mother's survival. Um, you know, so you know, requiring a mother to finish the pregnancy, you know, seemed to have no difference from those that aborted. Um, but there's, you know, that's only one instance of figures that we do have. Um,
Yeah, very interesting. So, Bill, is there any way that our listeners can help support you, can help keep up with, just the progress of this lawsuit? What would be the best way for people to keep in touch with you and
okay.
support you, what you're
Well,
doing?
you know, yeah. I mean, first of all, for Connecticut Right to Life, those who live in Connecticut, of course, they are certainly welcome to join our group. And you know, we have a website, Connecticut Right to Life Education Alliance, and you can sign up there to be on our mailing list for newsletters and such, and make contributions. And then the same for Unborn Babies Count. Just go to Unborn Babies Count, and you know you'll be able to sign up, get on our mailing list, and make donations there as well. Um, yeah, so we certainly would like to support. And I should say, I've been talking about the lawsuit, but we have approached the Trump administration, and President Trump, we know, likes executive orders, and the Census Bureau is under his jurisdiction. You know, it'd be great if he just simply issued an executive order and we don't have to go to court at all. But so far, they haven't done that. Or we can go to Congress, and I have gone to Congress during the March for Life and whatever, and leafleted all the pro-life members of the pro-life caucus in Congress, asking them to put in legislation and to pass that for the next census coming up, 2030, in what, 4 years, I guess. And so people could ask their congressman, you know, please support a law, or even put a law in, and or ask the president, you know, to issue an executive order. So 3 routes we can go, but we're preparing on this census lawsuit as well.
Mhm. And it's not only citizens, right? Like everyone living in the US is counted in the census.
Yeah, anyone that's considered an inhabitant of the United States, whether here legal, illegal, if they're an inhabitant living here, then they're supposed to be counted. So again, if there's someone just passing through, like a vacation or businessman or something, they don't get counted, or a diplomat, but everyone else is supposed to be counted. And that's perhaps why we have so many illegal aliens here in the country, and particularly in the more liberal states. They keep killing off their own babies, and they need someone to fill their places to keep their seats in Congress. So it's a power thing.
Well, thank you for telling us all about this. I think this is great, and yeah, I think everyone should, it's always important to write your members of Congress and or call them and really express. I think if a lot of people did that, right, there might be more of a push for them to pass a law to count babies in the census. So, well, while we have a few minutes, I know we only have a few minutes left, but I'd love to hear a little bit about Connecticut Right to Life. Do you guys have any upcoming events? Are there, anything that you said people can get involved by going to the website? But what are some of the things that Connecticut Right to Life has done in the last year or so? Or, yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, Connecticut Right to Life Corporation, that sort of became inactive a bit, over the pandemic time, and we got the new group going. And during that time, we didn't have any. We always had an annual convention. We just started that up again now 2 years ago, and that's it's going pretty well, and we want it to grow. But they were usually in the fall. We're gonna switch it from this fall till next spring. We think there's so many things going on in the fall. We thought it might be better to hold it in the spring. So we don't have a date for it yet, but we will be having it probably next April here in Connecticut. We also have some groups going out to different fairs coming up in the fall to have leaflets and things like that. And again, along our education line, we're having a sort of a seminar in the fall. We've got about a dozen people lined up to become trained as speakers, so they can go out and spread the message. We have a woman coming down from Massachusetts who's done this for 30 or 40 years, I guess, and she's going to be training some of our people here. And of course, we're always looking for other people to spread the message, whether it's as speakers or letters to the editor and whatever. And then of course, next March will be, I think it's probably the sixth annual Connecticut March for Life up in Hartford. It's usually the same week as St. Patrick's Day on a Wednesday when the legislators are there. So we'll be having that March for Life and encouraging everyone to turn out for that. So those are some of the things that are coming up that we'll be working on.
Awesome.
And do you have some passages about the census in the Bible?
Yeah, you asked for something from the Bible, and of course, with census on my mind, it goes back to David. I guess he got in trouble because he ordered a census of the people, and God wasn't too happy. I guess because he was mainly ordering the census for to know how many soldiers he could have and how many people he could tax. So that didn't go over real well. But then, of course, in the Gospels, it mentions another census by the Romans, and that ended up getting Jesus, Mary, and Joseph all to Bethlehem, which was in the city of David, ironically, and but they got there at the right time in the right place. So hopefully this work that we're doing on this census here in this country will do what has already happened for the black slaves. Instead of being counted as only 3/5 of a person as a private property, they're going to be they then became counted as a full person and recognized with constitutional rights. And we want the same thing to happen now with the unborn, to be recognized as a full person, as full children of God.
Well, thanks for coming on our show today, Bill. God bless you, and Connecticut Right to Life, and was it Unborn
Babies Count.
Unborn Babies Count. Awesome.
Incorporated,
right? It's Connecticut. So CTRLeducationalliance.org, and then
unbornbabiescount.org.
.org. Okay, great. Well, we hope that everybody will go and check out those websites, sign up for Bill's newsletters, and yeah, let's get the babies counted in the census. That'd be great. Get those unborn babies counted. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bill. We really appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll be praying for your effort because I think that would be a great step in the right direction for the pro-life movement. So
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you. And all the support you do for the pro-life movement.
yes, thank you. All right. Bye, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Be ever living.
Bye. Yes.
Thank you for listening to the Ever Living Podcast, a podcast by New Hampshire Right-to-Life, New Hampshire's oldest and most active pro-life organization. You can learn more about our work and learn how to get involved at www.nhrtl.org. If you would like to donate to our mission, you can make a donation at www.nhrtl.org/donate. See you next week. May God bless you and be very near to you, and may you be ever living.